Have you ever been on a project that just felt chaotic, unpredictable? Well, chances are you've heard someone bring up Scrum. Today, we're going to cut through all the jargon and go straight to the source, the official Scrum guide, to really understand the simple rules of the game for tackling really complex problems. So let's just start with the biggest question of all. When you're staring down a huge challenge and the solution is anything but obvious, where you have to innovate and adapt as you go, how do you even begin? This is exactly the kind of situation where a rigid, detailed, upfront plan is doomed to fail, and it's the exact problem Scrum was built to solve. So, what is Scrum, really? You've probably heard the word thrown around in meetings, but let's get past the buzzwords for a second. At its heart, the official definition is a lot simpler, and honestly, a lot more powerful than you might think. And there it is. The two key words I want you to focus on here are lightweight and adaptive. Lightweight means Scrum isn't some huge, complicated instruction manual. It just gives you enough structure to get going. And adaptive means it is built for change. The goal is never to follow a plan perfectly. It's to learn and adjust as you go, all while delivering real, actual value. This simple loop you see here, this is the engine that makes Scrum run. First, a product owner figures out what work is most valuable and orders it. Then, the team gets to work and creates a small, usable piece of that work. Next, and this is crucial, everyone, the team and the stakeholders get together to inspect the result and give feedback. And then, you just repeat it. This constant cycle of inspecting and adapting is the absolute core of how you learn and get better in Scrum. Okay, so if Scrum is our game for solving complex problems, who are the players? You've got to understand the team, because Scrum basically bets everything on a small, focused group of people working together. So let's meet them. The first rule of a Scrum team? Keep it small. The guide is very specific, 10 or fewer people. And that's not just some random number they pulled out of a hat. You see, with fewer people, you have less complexity and way faster communication. A team this size is nimble, it's agile, it can change direction on a dime, which is exactly what you need for adapting. Now, within that small team, there are 3 distinct accountabilities. And notice that word, accountabilities, not job titles. That's a big deal. You've got the developers, the product owner, and the Scrum Master. There are no hierarchies here, no sub-teams. It's just one cohesive unit, laser-focused on a single goal. First up, the developers. These are the people who are actually doing the hands-on work to build the product. But don't get hung up on the word developer. It's a broad term. It can be engineers, sure, but it can also be designers, analysts, writers, basically anyone who is creating that usable piece of value, which Scrum calls an increment. Next up, the product owner. Now, this is one person, and I mean one person, not a committee, who is completely accountable for maximizing the value of the product. They own the product's to-do list, which we call the product backlog, and their whole job is to make sure the team is always working on the most important thing. And finally, we have the Scrum Master. Now, this is the role that almost everyone gets wrong at first. They're not the boss. They are not a project manager. Think of them as a coach, a true leader who serves the team and the whole organization by knocking down roadblocks and making sure everyone understands and uses the Scrum framework effectively. All right, so we know who the players are, but how do they actually, play the game? Scrum isn't just organized chaos. It provides a really steady, predictable rhythm through a series of events. This is what gives the work its structure. The absolute heartbeat of Scrum is the sprint. It's basically a container for all the other events and all the work. It has a fixed length, 1 month or less is the rule, and as soon as one sprint ends, the next one begins immediately. This consistent rhythm creates predictability, and just as importantly, it limits your risk to a really short time window. So what actually happens inside one of these sprints? Well, it follows a pretty clear pattern. The team kicks things off with sprint planning to figure out what they can get done. They touch base every day during daily scrums to keep things moving. At the very end, they show what they built in the sprint review, and then they reflect on how they work together in the sprint retrospective to improve for next time. Now, here's a common mistake. A lot of people think the sprint review is just a demo. It is not. It's a real collaborative working session. The team shows what they accomplished, and then, together with stakeholders, they inspect that outcome and adapt the plan for what to do next. It's a massive feedback loop, and it's essential. So, if the sprint review is all about improving the product, the retrospective is all about improving the team. This is where the team takes a hard look in the mirror. What went well, what didn't, what could we do better? They come up with real, tangible changes to improve their process, their collaboration, their effectiveness. This is their engine for getting better over time. Okay, we've got the players, we've got the rhythm of the game, but how do we actually make the work visible? How do we keep score and make sure everyone's on the same page? Well, for that, Scrum uses 3 key things it calls artifacts. Think of it like this. Each of Scrum's 3 artifacts is tied directly to a specific commitment. That commitment gives it focus and a real purpose. So the product backlog, that big to-do list, is guided by the long-term product goal. The sprint backlog, what we're doing right now, is driven by the short-term sprint goal. And the increment, the actual work we're finishing, is measured against a quality standard called the definition of done. Let's really zero in on the increment for a second. This is the entire point of a sprint, to produce a tangible, concrete piece of the product. And I can't stress this enough. The most important rule is that it has to be usable. It's not almost done, it's not code complete, it has to be a real, valuable, working stepping stone toward that bigger product goal. So, how does a team agree on what usable actually means? Well, that's exactly where the definition of done comes in. It's a formal, shared agreement on the quality standard for any piece of work. This creates total transparency for everyone. If an item doesn't meet the definition of done, it's not done, period. End of story. So we've covered the players, the rules, and how we keep score. But you know what? None of that works. I mean, none of it, without understanding the core philosophy that holds it all together. This is the foundation that makes the whole game possible. Scrum is built on something called empiricism. Sounds fancy, but all it really means is learning by doing. You make decisions based on what you can actually see and observe, not on a bunch of assumptions. And this whole idea stands on 3 pillars. Transparency, so everyone can see what's going on. Inspection, so you're constantly checking your work. And adaptation, so you can change course based on what you learn. And these 3 pillars are completely connected. You can't have one without the others. I mean, think about it. Trying to inspect your progress without transparency, you're just guessing. And that's a waste of time. And what's the point of inspecting your work if you find a problem but then don't adapt your plan? It's totally pointless. All 3 have to work together. And finally, to really bring those pillars to life, a Scrum team lives and breathes 5 core values. They need commitment to their goals and the focus to see them through. They have to have the courage to tackle tough problems and be open about challenges. And above all, they must respect each other as capable, independent experts. And that, really, brings us to the final and maybe the most important idea of all. The Scrum framework itself is simple. The rules are clear, but making it actually work, well, that's less about just following the mechanics and more about embracing this underlying mindset. So the real question isn't whether you understand the rules of Scrum. It's whether your team is ready to build the trust, the openness, and the courage that it truly requires.